Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Handsome German, the only show on the internet. And today I have the distinct pleasure of talking to you about Sifu, which is basically, if I had to sum it up in as few words as possible, Shenmue but fast. Essentially, somebody shows up and kills your dad / teacher, and you go on a quest for revenge to kill everyone involved. And you do that by running through the 5 levels, one after another, and punch-kicking them into oblivion. Not the levels, the people who are in the levels. So... oh my god, I've never actually watched this footage. Oh my god, this... So let me just tell you that this feels as good to play as it looks. If you're watching this and you're thinking, wow, this looks like it'd be really fun to run around and beat up people in, it is. It is. The game is by Slowclap, the developers of Absolver, which was a very cool game that was ultimately stifled by the fact that it needed a large online player base to function, and by the time I got around to playing it, it didn't have one anymore, so Absolver unfortunately wasn't the greatest experience. So much violence. I love it. I think I have to turn off the sound on the video while I'm watching it, so I don't constantly get distracted by how fucking crunchy and amazing the combat in this game is. Oh, feels so good. So, you basically are a fighting game character, slightly stripped down in terms of how many moves you have. You use light attacks and heavy attacks and different combinations of X and Y presses to perform different special moves. Special moves are unlocked through the death and rebirth system that I'll get into, which is the other big thing about this game. Yeah, so... Can I just upload a video of me laughing at the violence for 20 minutes? Holy shit. Oh, it looks so good. It looks so smooth. Oh, gosh, okay, maybe I have to close my eyes to be able to talk about the game. Jeez. But I can't look away. I can't look away. And the reason I can't look away is because the combat in this game is incredibly snappy. You press the button and it happens right away. The way you defeat enemies is by hitting them until either their HP hits 0 or their structure breaks. Structure is basically your poise, your ability to not be stunned. And you have it, enemies have it, bosses have it, and uniformly if somebody is out of structure, if somebody's structure breaks, they're screwed. In terms of enemies, all of them, including bosses, can be executed, can be taken down. For bosses, it takes them to the second phase or kills them if you're already in the second phase. And for enemies, it either kills them or causes them to flip their shit. Some enemies, I think it's semi-random, but there's always a set number of them per level, will flip their shit when you try to execute them and become infinitely stronger and actually kind of dangerous compared to most of the regular grunts. Now, I gotta admit right away that it took me more than one attempt to beat the first level, and that's despite the fact that you have to be over 70 years old, but let's get back to what we're talking about right now. If I make parts of it look easy, this part obviously I'm successfully making look very difficult. More difficult than it probably is. just made a couple of mistakes. But as you can see, a couple of mistakes against a group of enemies took away half my health bar. And there are only 2 ways you can heal. One is by taking out enemies, which is my favorite mechanic in anything. It's perfect. Always design your game around healing by killing enemies. It just creates this constant forward momentum. It's, in my opinion, the best way of doing things. Now here you can see the upgrade system. You can add shrines, or whenever you die, unlock a new ability or multiple new abilities if you want, depending on how much experience you've acquired. Now experience you obviously get from beating up enemies. I don't think there's a skill multiplier for this. There is for the level score, but I think XP just depends on how many enemies you beat up, not how well you do it. And different moves that you can unlock cost different amounts of XP. And if you, throughout all of your runs, unlock and then pay the same price for that move 5 more times, you can unlock it permanently for any of your future runs, which is incredibly helpful and the main way you permanently get stronger in this game. So you don't actually unlock any new items that you can find on your run. This isn't this. A lot of people call it a roguelike. I honestly don't think it is. I think it's a much different kind of game, and I'm gonna make a full video on that. So make sure you subscribe for my video on why I consider Sifu a revenge spiral game as a genre. Now, you unlock these new moves, and they can be all kinds of different stuff. In this case, something that I unlocked recently is the ability to kick random objects at enemies to knock them over, which is hilarious. And in this case, I do it a lot because this is the first time I'm playing this level with that ability. And yeah, I just decided to troll the fuck out of the big guy. The other thing that you unlock, you don't unlock those when you die, or you can't unlock those when you die, you can only unlock those at shrines, is passive stat upgrades, like, for instance, more weapon durability, more weapon damage, better structure regeneration, better focus regeneration. Focus is a system where when the bar is full, you can execute a special attack against enemies. The best one is the one where you sweep the leg and then you can punch them twice. It works against bosses, it works against everyone, and it only costs 1 bar, so you can use it a lot. It's pretty much the main way I deal damage to bosses. It's an awesome ability. Just fucking punch them in the throat. Oh, it's so brutal. You're playing as such an angry person in this game, and it's amazing. So here we have another fight against a larger group of enemies, and oh, that was slick. Oh, that was slick with the kick to the side. Oh. So the first thing you'll learn playing this game is that while you are a super powerful kung fu badass right from the beginning of the game, all the people that you're fighting, almost all of them, are also kung fu badasses. So you might want to be careful, you know, not to get surrounded, not to fight too many of them at once. Yeah, see, this is a run that I did before I was able to beat the first level without dying, but it gives me a chance to show off the other core mechanic of the game that really sets it apart from everything else. So when you die, you also get the chance to invest points into unlocking new abilities. And then you age. And how much you age depends on your death counter. Every time you die, your death counter goes up by 1. So if you die 3 times, then the 3rd time you die, you're going to age by 3 years. Certain enemies, when you defeat them, will reduce your death counter by 1. There's an unlock at the shrine for 1,000 experience that resets your death pounder. I was looking at him punching the guy in the face. Death pounder. That's the name of the video. Sifu Death Pounder. Sets the death counter back to 0. I personally have never done that because it seems like a waste. But it's definitely useful to do immediately before bosses. There's an interesting thing going on in the game where the older you get, the more damage you deal, but the lower your max health becomes. And by the time you're 70, the artifact that revives you breaks. So if you are 70 or older and die, then that's it. Your run is over. But you don't have to start again from the beginning. There's actually a really nice system that I absolutely love, where the game essentially saves your high score on any level. So say I make it through the first level at age 23. And then I enter the club, which is the second level, at age 23. So if I then play through the club and die, or make it to the next one and die then, which is very likely because the third level is fucking rough, then I can choose to either go back to the first level and start a completely new run and pick different upgrades, or I can start from the second level at the youngest age I've managed to reach it, which in that case would be 23, and keep the same upgrades that I've unlocked, at least the same passive upgrades that I've unlocked in the previous run. The moves that you get for XP, those you have to unlock permanently in order to keep them between runs. Otherwise, you lose them. I definitely recommend just investing in moves to get them affixed permanently to your character, because don't pretend you're going to beat this game in one go. Just unlocking a bunch of moves for one run, sure, it's fun to play around with, but oh shit, okay, hang on. Sorry about that, the laptop died. So anyway, this game is hard. Like, capital, all letters, hard. It does not fuck around, but what is incredibly nice to see is that it's perfectly learnable. It's hard to tell, at least for someone who, struggled to get good for a while, how many of the obstacles and enemies can be learned on your first attempt, how much can be predicted ahead of time, how many movements can be read clearly, especially with some of the later bosses, especially bosses 3 and 4, because it took me many tries to beat them. Well, no, not the fourth one. The fourth one I beat on my first go for some reason, but I died a lot regardless. But you can definitely get good because the game is perfectly fair, so long as you don't do anything stupid. It's tempting to assume that this is going to be Batman Arkham style combat, or Shadow of Mordor, or the old Assassin's Creeds, where you can just run into the middle of the room and then just have everyone surround you. And the only reason I ran into the middle of the room and let everyone surround me in this case is because I knew that when I'm armed with a pipe, I can take out the fat guy instantly. And that is something that's really clever, because I think this is the only NES hard game to come out in full 3D, maybe ever. because the challenge of this game doesn't come from navigating complex worlds and a lot of people are gonna be like, oh yeah, no, how does it compare to Dark Souls? Because it's a difficult game with melee combat, so obviously. And those games are nothing alike, because this game is just the action. Imagine playing a fighting game against like 7 people at the same time, and then you have a vague idea of what this game is like. And here we are at one of the bosses, the first one, the botanist. And I fuck up a lot because this is me after beating the second level, replaying the first one, trying to get my age down as much as I can. And I was still getting good then. Now I can consistently beat this one with barely any damage because you learn the patterns, you learn the rhythm, and it's just incredibly satisfying. Obviously, the new moves that you gain also help tremendously in defeating enemies, especially those with additional mobility, like the snap kick is my personal favorite move, just because you move forward so much that you can attack someone from half a room away, and it's pretty great. And that's what this entire game is about, because it only has 5 levels right now. They're talking about adding more content later, which is probably going to be like a horde mode or maybe a versus mode. Ooh, that'd be fun. As you can see here, the Y and B indicator is an execution even against bosses, but obviously it changed to the second phase instead of killing him outright, because that'd be a little much. And you wouldn't want to skip the second phases either, because there, when the element of the boss comes to the forefront, in his case it's wood, which is an element in China, so let's not question it. Let's just respect their wacky beliefs of what elements are. And as you can see, the entire arena changed completely. The second boss is fire themed, and he has a really cool moment where he drops a cigarette, the only time somebody looked cool dropping a cigarette, and stomps it with his bow staff, and the entire arena catches on fire, and it's lit, if you'll pardon the expression. And I absolutely love that. The fact that you're not the only one with supernatural powers. Uh-oh, somebody's in trouble. And that's the end of him. The game revels in the fact that it is both grounded and explicitly supernatural. What you do and how most people fight is perfectly realistic. However, and I'm going to click back and just start the video over. However, there is this constant air of supernaturality to everything, and it's just visually really, really fun.
I warned you, asshole.
And that's kind of the nice thing. Anyway, to finish up the point about it being an NES difficult game, this game extends its runtime by being hard. You get the value, you get your $40 worth of value, at least I think so, from replaying levels over and over again and getting better at them. And something that I personally, like a policy that I have when I play retro games, obviously only on the official Nintendo Switch NES emulator or SNES or N64, is that if I can beat a level without dying, then I'm okay putting a save state there so I don't have to go back to the beginning of the game when I game over. And it's nice to see that the people at Slow Clap agree with that philosophy. Because, like I said, now, for example, I can beat the first level without dying, which means I can go to the club at age 20, which means I never have to play the first level again unless I want to. And chances are I'm going to want to at some point after I beat the other stuff that the game throws at you afterwards. But it's really gonna come down to, do you think that the combat that you're seeing is worth doing over and over again for hours at a time? Do you think that replaying a level to get better at it, to get a new high score, is fun and worthwhile? And while you think about that, do keep in mind that this is very much a game where you can have a perfect score. The perfect score is always 20. So this is not necessarily a game where you compete endlessly, just grinding out the first level over and over again, trying to eke out a few more points here and there. No, this is a game where you get perfect at a level and at a boss, and then you move on. Obviously you can move on without being perfect. I start the third level at age 24, for example, because I'm not great at the second level. And I start the fourth level at age 35, I think. So you can move on without perfecting the craft of beating up the same people over and over again. But the game isn't really designed for that. The game is designed to be played 100 times just to get better at it, just to see more bones break and blood spray, just to have a damn good time getting good at a game. And if you enjoy that process, if you enjoy getting good at a game more than you enjoy getting to the next epic cutscene or whatever, even though the cutscenes are pretty good, if you want to run around and find amazing lore, I mean, the game has lore and it's not bad, but it's not crazy in depth either. If you're looking for incredible voice acting performances, also not necessarily here. If you're looking for a gear system, if you're looking for randomized levels, that's also not there. Because like I said, this game isn't about grinding the same thing over and over again just because. It's about doing the same thing over and over again to become perfect at it. And that's something the game does amazingly well. And that's all I can really say about it up until I put out my next video, which will probably also be about Sifu if I get it done in time. We'll see. Fu. Is that the second time I made that joke? No, I don't think so. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I strongly recommend Sifu. If you're not sure about it, the Epic Store, just like Steam, has a policy that if you play a game for less than 2 hours, you can get a refund, so long as you played within the first 2 weeks of buying it. And I'll definitely admit that after an hour and 50 minutes, I quit out of the game, and I was like, do I want to keep going? Am I in the right headspace to get repeatedly humiliated until I get good. And ultimately I decided that yes, I was. And it just so happened to turn out that I didn't get humiliated for very long. It didn't take me very long to figure out a lot of the intricacies, to figure out that the focus attack is incredibly important, or that dodging and parrying is actually way easier than I thought it was, and I didn't have to focus on the RT dodge nearly as much. It's a phenomenal game to get good at. It's just tons of fun. You can also play as a girl character if that's something that's important to you. I just chose to go with the guy character because how many times do you get to be a 30-year-old with a thick beard and increasingly long hair? That just kind of appealed to me for some reason, you know? Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more Sifu, for a more edited, for a scripted video. And I'll see you there. Goodbye.